When you're looking for a hydration product, what are the things that you're looking for?
If I'm ever looking for a hydration product, the number one thing I'm looking for is that it tastes good. Like, water has no taste at all. Water's what, like, nature turns to rehydrate, and that's a little bit boring. And then you come down, are you gonna go with sugar? Are you gonna go with sugar-free? And all of this is just conversations point. Does this taste better than the other product? That's it. Jocko Hydrate is delicious. It's got electrolytes. That's between you guys. I don't know what electrolyte is. Frankly, I don't even need one. You could give me more electrolytes than the opponent, I'll beat the opponent. You could give me less than the opponent, I'll still beat the opponent. I can't even spell electrolyte. This has them, whatever that is. And it tastes good, which is really what matters. Things change. Can we agree on that? Things change. You are as good as the information you have at the time. Do you guys know what a lie is? I'm just wondering that. Like, of course you do that. That's rhetorical, but I bet you've never looked it up. I bet you don't actually know what a lie is. And I gotta tell you, I've never looked it up either. But my mother told me what it was when I was a kid, which is to say something knowing it isn't accurate. But she used an example, like if I was to say today is Tuesday, when today is in fact Wednesday. If I think it's Tuesday, then it's not a lie. If I know it's Wednesday and I am trying to deceive you, this is literally the example that she gave. And I'm sure she's spot on. I'm sure that we would all understand that. But I do see people get called out and go, well, he said that he would never do this, and he goes back on it. I even see that in political season. They'll use that against somebody. He's a flip-flopper. Listen to what he said here versus what he said here. I like a guy like that. I like a person that will change their mind and change their opinion if they're confronted with evidence they did not previously have. Okay. Now, I tell you that because something is going on. Like the suggestion that Khabib would fight again. Now, I was light on this idea, but when we were having fun, you guys remember this, you were as guilty as I was, every 20 minutes leading into UFC 300, we were making a different guess, and they were all insane. They were all of them, but that was the information that we had. We were told it was going to be a jaw-dropping moment. Just the announcement. We were told that things were being worked on that we never could have imagined. And it's like, well, just to fit that criteria, you got to get pretty crazy just to fit that criteria. Okay. And amongst that was suggestions of Khabib. You might remember that Javier Mendez had made a statement. Coach Javier Mendez, Khabib's coach, made a statement that he and Khabib were working together and that Khabib never worked with him unless he was training for a fight. Now, that got taken out of context to the point that Coach Mendez even went out publicly to correct it. I was as guilty as anybody of not understanding what had come before and what had come after that. Now, I only take you down that road to let you know on my own social media, on my own text exchanges of people that I personally know that have my phone number. Some took it as an offense that I would even suggest that Khabib would fight again. Khabib is a man of honor and principle, and he said he was done. And I really looked at it even at that time to say, hey, what are you talking about? Like, Khabib has done everything honorable that you could possibly do. The moment he beat Gaethje and knew in his heart he was done, he retired in that moment. He gave the belt back. That is extremely honorable. Other guys would have kept it. They'd have kept the talk, the dialogue, the sponsorships, probably could have hung onto that belt for a year. Which your sponsorship deals quite literally change whether you're champion or not. There's clauses in there. If you become champion, it escalates to this. If you lose the championship, like, it's a very common thing. There would be very built-in incentives as to why Khabib would hold on to that belt, even if he had information in his heart, and he didn't do that. And I'm only sharing all of that with you to let you know, at no point would Khabib's honor be called into question if he was to fight again. Now, guys, I will admit, I had fun at UFC 300. I had fun making these suggestions. I will also suggest for you When the negotiation, you guys might remember this, Khabib said I'm done and retired. They put him in the rankings. In fact, they moved him up in the rankings. He was number 2. They moved him to number 1 after he said I'm done. They did not vacate the title. When Khabib dropped that belt and handed it back, the title did not become vacant. They refused to take it. They said, no way. No way. Hey, man, we 30-0. This is number 29. This is in the moment. You don't mean this. Think it over, right? But I'm just reminding you of that time. And I have maintained for you that when those negotiations were going on and they were attempting to change numbers, they were changing the wrong number. The same reason that 30-0 became 29-0. It wasn't commas and zeros. It was the weight class. If they would have had one more, sat him down, really negotiated, and made it 170 pounds, you would have seen Khabib fight. Or at least you'd have been a lot more likely. Now, that is just some inside knowledge for you. Over 95% of fighters that you see retire, they will never say, because I don't want to make the weight class anymore. Over 95% of fighters retire because of the weight class. That's inside info. You would have never thought that. You'd have never, oh my gosh, yeah, I guess that day before, right? Hard battle. I assure you I'm going to tie these thoughts together. Now, there is rumors about Khabib that are going on online. And like the government is looking into him and or the gym that he has or however this goes. So I will share with you that as exaggerated and as misunderstood as a lot of those articles are, they're not unfounded. There is an issue that Khabib's having to deal with. And if you hold that thought, okay, you then have a fight that got put out. The UFC owns the content too. This fight does not go out without the UFC. The UFC very commonly releases fights. Very commonly. Big main event coming up this weekend. Got Nick Diaz in it. This is an example. Leading into the fight, they will release a Nick Diaz fight. One where he looks good. By example, they would not, when you're going into Nick Diaz fight week, which is why you release a Nick Diaz fight, to remind the world and to have this nostalgic moment, you do not release Nick Diaz versus George St. Pierre, where Nick came in second. But you might release Nick Diaz versus BJ Penn, just by example. And that would make sense to you, right? Like I just stated the obvious for you. If you're promoting a guy, and one of your ways to promote the guy, you do not demote the guy. You don't remind people of a loss. You don't bring something back from the past that he doesn't have to deal with, which, by the way, is negative while you're trying to shine him up. I know I'm stating the obvious. I know that I am. But it's important that you nod your head yes and go, yeah, obviously. Okay. Well, the UFC not only released Khabib versus Conor, said to be the single greatest drawing mixed martial arts fight of all time. They not only released it, which would take 5 seconds of releasing a code and shit, they edited it. In fact, the way of editing it is they did away with the commentary. I don't know why. I don't know what artistic value that added, which, by the way, if I think about it, possibly a positive one. I'm just sharing. I don't know why. I just know that it was done. I just know what could have been done in 5 seconds was not. It was taken to the kitchen and it was recooked, which is effort. It's effort. And why release that? Why release that and why release that now? What would it possibly have to do with anything? Now, you could just be entertaining people. Sure, I'll drink to that. But that would come back to my 5-second example. And it's released. This was actually recooked and repackaged. There was an effort into this. Now, we're told that Conor's coming back, which I don't know that I believe to be true. But to put out a fight that went against Conor when you don't have Khabib If you have one guy under contract, it doesn't matter who won the fight. It doesn't matter who the bigger star is. It doesn't matter who had more of a legacy. These are all separate conversations. If you're bringing something to the marketplace, which the number one goal that you would have was to shine up the athlete, it isn't actually to monetize yourself. You have other ways to monetize this piece. That's not what you did. You released it, and by the way, you put time, and you put thought, and you put effort, and you edited it. Why? Has that ever been done before? Has that ever been done before to go against the athlete who is still under contract? And the answer is no. You don't have an example where that's ever happened before. So, as unlikely as it is that Khabib is going to return, that they finally found out what Chael's known all along, which is the number you have to do isn't the commas and the zeros, it's the weight class. It's 170. In light of all the things that we're hearing that Khabib is facing, right? You have the right to change your mind when you're confronted with new evidence. Chuck Liddell didn't plan to ever fight again. Company got sold. Things pivoted. Made his decisions, right? Just as an example. As unlikely as it is that Khabib is going to fight Conor. And no, I'm not predicting that for you. But this came out for a reason, and this was edited for a reason, and this was re-released to the world for a reason. The most watched fight that we have ever seen. Like, that's the one fight you don't need to bring us. It was the most watched fight. You're not sitting on a golden gem. You don't got Hicks and Gracie getting into a street fight with the guy from the coffee can on the beach in Brazil that somebody caught. That's not what this is. So, you also didn't do it just to do it. Here are your two options. Khabib versus Conor is more of a thought than some people realized. Or, and you have the other one, but these are your two options. Khabib versus Conor, as unlikely as it might be, Khabib versus Conor is more of a topic than we knew. Things have changed. Or McGregor's not coming back. But there's not a third option. Just so you understand. This did not get released and edited first, which is unprecedented to go against the guy that's still under contract. That simply did not happen. So what was the reasoning? Is that guy not under contract? That has happened before. Is that guy not going to fight again? That has happened before. But Conor's putting out a tweet that he's going to fight Chandler this year, and the UFC is putting out a video that everybody wants to see, which goes against Conor. It wasn't on accident, and it wasn't a coincidence. Either Khabib versus Conor is being discussed to a higher level, which could be this much, by the way. That would still be higher than we're aware, or McGregor's not coming back.